So let me close this. So again, just to unclose this because I was on this here. Let me go now to my workbench. So basically, when you have the connection, what is this connection here? This is where you mention where your database server is, because you can be connected to any server and anywhere. All you need to have is the IP address or the host name of that database management system, so you can connect to. And then within that database management system, we can have many databases that we call schemas. Remember that discussion between the schema and the database? What's the difference? Just to avoid having the confusion of like what a database, you think about the database management system, the whole thing, or the database which is a collection of tables. So to distinguish between them, the schema helps you do that. So the schema is this database when we mean a collection of tables, and when we talk about the database management system, that's the whole system that allows you to manage and to create and manage your data. So now when we connect to that, when you do this new connection, just you have to mention what's the connection name, so it appears to you right like here, and then what's the IP address or the host name, and then the username. And then later on, when you try to connect, it will ask you about the password. So this is done here, for example, and then when you click on that, you have this kind of view. On the left side, you have some options that you can do. We are going to be seeing some of those later. On bottom here, you can see the schemas that you have access to. So you're going to see a list of schemas, and basically you're not going to be seeing a list. You're going to see only one, which is the one that was assigned to you, because each one of you has been assigned a single schema, where you're going to be putting all your tables there. So the other thing is that here, this is where we're going to be typing our code. When we type our code later on, we can save it into a file. This file is going to be an SQL file that contains all the code that I suggest you do so. So next time when you would like to have that file already to know what are the commands that you typed before, you can have it handy. So you can save it on the drive D, but I think we're moving to lab 104 tomorrow probably, and it's not going to follow you, of course. So you have to find a way to transport that file, USB, or send an email to yourself or something like that. This on the right side, if you click on it, it should show something, but it doesn't. Don't know why. Anyways, doesn't matter. So this is where we're going to be using our commands. So among the different instructions that we're going to be doing, basically we're going to be, first of all, selecting the database that we're going to be using, selecting the schema to use. When you're connected, you have to mention what's the schema you would like to use, because there's so many in a database management system that you have to select one so you can work on it. So in order for you to do that, you have to use this use, and then you mention the name of that schema. So all these are schemas that exist already. If I'd like to use one of them, let's say the one that is going to say it's company, I can just type company here, and it ends with semicolon. Everything ends with semicolon. And you have two ways to execute these things. You can execute your instructions using this one, which execute the statement under the keyword, the keyboard cursor, which this thing that's blinking. If you click on a line that has a statement and then you press this button, it's just going to execute that. If it's green here, that means it was okay. There was no problem. If it's not green, for example, for a reason that it's trying to go to somewhere that doesn't exist, it's going to show you some other way that this is something that did not go well, and it gives you some error message. Sometimes the error message is quite clear, sometimes it's just an indication of what's the error. So you have to try to guess. So that's the idea now. So the use is your first instruction to use. When you're going to, once you're connected, just make sure that you're connecting and then you're using a specific schema and you use the keyword use. So that's the thing. Now, we would like to be able to create a set of tables. So when I would like to create a table, let's say these are the different tables that we would like to create. Okay, we're going to do that incrementally, but let me just show you just the different steps to do that. So we have this student, for example. In this student, these are the different columns. So of course here I'm not going to be there's no mention of what's the data type, but we have a guess of what the kind of data types there are. So text or numbers and things like that. So that's what we're going to be working on with, inshallah. So let me just show it to you. So let's say that we're going to create this table student. For me, when I would like to create the table students, for example, what I said that I need to use a database. I'm not using any for now. Actually, I'm using one, but I'd like to use another one. I'm going to create a new schema that I'm going to mention. Create schema, and then let me call it student or students. So now what I did, I just created a new one, and I'm going to use it. Use students. I'm using Control and Enter. When you press Control Enter, it just executes the line that you're in. If I'm executing with this button over here, it executes everything. But now if I try to execute everything, it stops. At the first mistake, it stops. You see, it did not go to line 2 because the line 1 contains some problem. Create schema student. This command cannot create database student because it already exists. You cannot create something that exists already, so it tells you, oh, sorry, it exists. What do you want me to do? This is wrong, so I stop. And if you want to clear this thing, you can just right click and clear, and then you can just right click again. If you'd like to delete something, well, we're going to look at it later. So for now, I don't need to execute this one. I can comment it with the sharp or hash key. Now I'm just going to run everything and see it's going to skip this one and just run with the students. So this is your students. So if I'd like to create a table, and that table now is going to be called student. First of all, I need to tell you one thing. The way it is spelled is very important, because even the capital, lowercase, that's very important as well. Why? Because you're part of a team, and you're going to be, if you're given the task of designing the database and creating the tables and everything, somebody is going to be using the same tables with the same name of columns. So if you mess up the name of columns, this might also be a problem for the person, or the developer who is using your database. So even the order of those columns, you have to respect it. So you have to respect everything that is mentioned to you here. So for example, student is capital. I'm going to create a table student that is capital. So I'm going to create table. This is the command for that. And then I just need to mention the name of the table and open and close the parentheses, and in between I'm going to do something. Notice that the create table is in blue. Whatever is in blue is a keyword. So whenever you find something that is blue, this is what it means. There's something though that I would like to mention, is that MySQL or SQL is case insensitive, which means you can make lowercase or capital or whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. However, as an advice, if you use one way, one style, keep using it. Don't mix up styles. Sometimes it's capital, sometimes it's lowercase, or sometimes it's camel style, whatever. So just follow the same patterns, also the same way you do things. So like for example, when you open the parentheses, you keep it at the same line with the table. Well, try to be consistent, so it will help you when something is missing. You can find it quite easily. If you forget, for example, to open a parenthesis, it's going to try to help you, because you can see usually I have the open here, so something is missing. You're going to find it quickly. So the instruction for creating a table is quite straightforward. You just create a table, and then you list a list of attributes of columns, and then their data type. So what are the different columns? I have name, student number, class, and major. So I'm going to have that. So name, oh, it's blue. it was supposed to be just a name, which is the name of a column. Now it's blue because now I understand that name is some sort of a keyword. So how to avoid, I would like to use the same name, and I can do something like, for example, here or wherever something, then it's not become the keyword again, but you're not adhering, you're not following the naming that was imposed on you. So you have to do something. Well, there's a way to do that. There's under the escape key, there's this kind of weird code. So this code is going to tell, this is not a keyword, and this is just a name of a column, and that is the one below the escape key on your keyboard. And then so this is the name of the column, and then what's its data type. I need to choose what's data type. I have names should be some sort of a text, and the text is generally, well, there are many, but this is one of the data types that we need to use, which is variable character, which means it is going to use up to 50, but if you take less, it will store less. So that's what it means. But a maximum of 50 characters, for example, or whatever, 45 or any number, I don't care. So just for now, we have no indication that mentions the size, so we don't care for at this stage. We're just going to put any size, just something that is reasonable. So we think that 50 should be enough for a name, so that's fine. Now you won't like to add another one, so you put a comment and the same thing, student number. So student number should be an int, and yes, there is an int as well. There's also double, float exists as well. So these data types, primitive data types that you used to know from Java, are also available here. So a class is like a sophomore or whatever. So I'm going just to copy this, so it will be easier for me. I'm going to put varchar, and the major, another varchar, and that's it. Now that's all I need for this class table student. That's not enough, but it's just to test using that. Let me just run everything with this button. It's going to run all the instructions. Let me clear so you can see none here. And if I run now, I'm going to see your student was OK. Create table student was OK. Yes?
I've already created the table student, so did it create it again?
This is a schema student that I created. I did not create a table student. What I just created is this, a schema, which is a collection, a container of tables. So this container is called students with S, okay? And now I'm using that container, and inside that container I created a table called student. Now it's two different things. That's good to mention, so you will clarify that. So it was not a table before. It was a schema before. And it was not even the same name. It's students. Okay, so on the left side here you can see whenever I create a table, it can show here the list of my tables that are created. If you click on it, you're going to see some details about it, and these are the columns and so on. If you click on this arrow, you can see the columns. There are some indexes and foreign keys and triggers. We're going to learn all these inshallah later, but if you click on each one of them, you're going to see what it is. Notice that the int, we did not mention this number, but it comes by default. So, but we don't care about it for now. We'll talk about it probably later. So that's it. That's how we create a table. Now if I run it again, we have a problem because it already exists. So I cannot create something that exists. How to delete something that exists? Well, before creating it, let me delete it. How to delete it is to use this drop table, like you drop it on the floor. Just that's how you, it's not delete, because delete is used somewhere else. We're going to use it for another type of instructions. So drop table student, and let me and semicolon again. Now if I just click here, it just deletes the table students, and that's it. That's green. That means it was okay. If I try to do it again, it will just tell me there's no table called student that you want me to delete. So it gives you an error message again, and it stops. If you try to run everything, it will just stop there. It will use students. That's fine. When it tries to drop, well, it stops. What if I'd like to make it just continue and just drop the table if it's already available? If it's there, it deletes it. If it's not there, just keep moving and going. There's an instruction for that, and I can do something like drop table if exists. Now drop table if exists. If it exists, it will delete it, no problem. If it doesn't exist, it will not tell you there's a problem and stop. It will just keep going. So now if I run, look what happens. This use students was okay. This one was in pay attention. I tried to delete something, but it didn't exist, so that's why I'm giving it just warning. But this is not a problem. And then I have create the table, which was able to create. If I run it again, it will be able to delete the table that existed and start again. This is important because if you'd like to do a modification, you made a mistake, you would like to change something, it's easier to delete and start from scratch rather than just modify, because modify you have to do a lot of things, and there's this MySQL to modify. This is the alter table. You need to. This is the. I just would like to show you the code of the alter table, and this is what's possible with alter table. Look at this. Yeah, it's a lot of options. So, but let's just keep it simple for now. We are going to get to this alter table. We have to, but let's take some time to just take the easier things. Destroying, as you can see, is always so easy. One line and a few words, but creating takes more time and efforts. Now, I did this because I want to add the primary key. Okay, there are many ways to add the primary key. Many ways. One of them, the easiest one, would be just to select, okay, which one is my primary key? This one? Okay, just mention primary key. And that's it. If I just run it, you click here on the table student, the different tables. Let me refresh this. And you click on student, and now you see something that says PK, which is this column is a primary key. Or let me show you another thing, is that there's something also interesting that you might want to know. Describe student. Describe student, it will allow you to see some of these in a result. Let me just run this line. You're going to see something like this. This is the result of that describe. So it shows you these are the fields or the columns: name, student, class, major. These are the data types. And some null, not null, we're going to talk about it later. And then primary, this is for the key, it's a primary key. It's just for primary. Okay. And then you can close this from here. So, now this is the simplest way, but not the, I would like you to learn a generic way to do that, which is by using constraint. By using constraint, you just mean that I'm adding a constraint, and then you give a name to that constraint. And the constraint is that I'm using something like that says student, the primary key PK, primary key for student, and I'm just need to mention primary key. Keep everything primary key, and in the primary key, you need to put between parentheses which one is the primary key. And it's better for you to learn this, because if you have more than one column, one field, part of the primary key, you cannot just put primary key here, primary key here. You have to use this primary key, and then in between parentheses, you can put the first one, the second one, the third one, and so on. So this is the way that I'd like you to to define a primary key in a table. Now execute everything, and I have the primary key that is defined. Everything is in green, which means no problems. Up to now is okay, right? Now I'm just going to show you the foreign key, and then I'm going to allow you to practice all this. Okay, so just give me a second to show you a foreign key. Let's choose a table that has a foreign key. Which one? The course doesn't have a foreign key, but probably. Well, now we need to have at least one, because if we have a section, it has a course number. So I need to create the course first before I can use a section that has a course number, which is the foreign key pointing to the course. So let's just practice again the create table with this data, and then so let's just do it again. Create table course, and I always open and close. Why? Just to avoid forgetting it. I just open, close, and go in between, then push it back, push it down, so I can just type in the middle, and I'm trying to be safe of forgetting anything. And then I have course name, course number. So course name, which is some sort of a varchar. Course number. Well, let's make it an int. We don't care. We don't have any information that prevents us from doing that. Credit hours and department. Credit hours. Credit hours should be what? A number. Because it's not point something. And then the department. Let's put varchar 50. And then, yeah, which one is the primary key? It's course number, so I'm just going to be doing the same thing. And let's create primary key for course. And my primary key is the course number. Now I'm able to create again everything. So it just drop the table student, then create the table student, create the table course. If I just try to run it again, it doesn't work because
course is already created.
So what should I do? You remember? Drop
Course.
Drop course.
Table.
Drop table course. Drop table if exists. Drop table if exists, so we can avoid having those problems. Now if I run everything, it deletes everything and starts from scratch. Now the fun part. Let's create the section. In the section we're going to be having this course number, which is going to be pointing to the course number here in course. So let's do that. So create table. So I'm going to copy some of that. Let's just copy this. And now instead of course it's section, and section again. So we have section identifier, section identifier, which should be which should be my primary key. And this is the primary key for section. It's very important that when you name your constraints, you give them a unique name, because if you don't, if two constraints have the same name, you might have some problems, especially with the foreign keys. So it's very important. That's why I put pk and then underscore and then the name, because I'm sure that there's only going to be one primary key for course and one primary key for section. There's no way that there's going to be two tables with the same name. It's impossible. And then the same thing when I'm doing this, I'm ensuring that only this kind of name of a constraint exists. So the same thing you have to do whenever you create these constraint names. You have to, whenever you create a constraint, you have to mention a name. You have to choose a name that is unique. So section identifier, we have course number, course number, semester, year, and instructor. Semester is an int, yeah, because maybe it's first semester, second semester, or 381, 382, whatever. And then we said what instructor is likely to be an varchar, but in between we have the year, which is an int. But year is in blue, which means this is a keyword, and let's just put this quotes. So now that's what I have. Up to here we have the course the section identifier, the course number, the semester, the year, and the instructor, all in this order. And I added the primary key, which is the section identifier. Now I need to add another constraint, which is the foreign key. Just mention it like this: foreign key from section to, because this is a foreign key, I'm in section, and it's going to be pointing to course. So this is how I chose to do it. You can do another name. This is the name of a constant. You can choose whatever you want. So for me, I just start from where I am and where I'm going. So that's what I used to do. So I do that. And this is the foreign key. And I have to mention which one is the foreign key among these ones. Which one is the foreign key? That's the course number. And then where does it point to? It references in the table course, what's the field that's going to be the pointing to? It's the course number. So this is how it is. Let me just put this on 2 lines, so you can see them all. So now in this table section I have 2 constraints. One of them is the primary key, the other one is a foreign key, and I'm mentioning that this foreign key, this is the key that is the foreign key. Now this value here means this column is not going to be accepting any number. It's going to only accept a number that already exists in this column in this table. So that's how it works. This is what the foreign key does, right? So now let's run everything, and as you can see, everything is okay. All right, so that's your turn now. You're going to be coming up with these things. I'm just going to leave these on the screen so you can have like a sample of these things, and I'd like it now to do that and to practice that. So let's do it.